It was guilt trip city, and I wasn't buying it. So, I made it clear, if she wasn't going to take the test, I wasn't going to sign anything. I wasn't about to get legally tied to a kid that wasn't mine. Simple, right? I thought that would be the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. Cue the family drama. A few weeks after that, my parents find out. Now, I love my parents, but they have this whole traditional values thing going on, and the second they hear about the situation, they lose it, like completely lose it. They're calling me names, saying I'm a deadbeat and a disgrace, and I'm just standing there trying to get a word in, but they're not listening. I told them, Mom, Dad, this isn't my kid. Jenny's just making stuff up. But they weren't having it. It's like once they got it in their heads that I was responsible for this baby, they couldn't shake it. There were a lot of nasty arguments after that, things were said that I probably can't take back, and honestly, I'm still mad about it. My parents kept pushing me to do the right thing and step up as a father, even though I kept telling them it wasn't my kid. It didn't matter to them. In their eyes, I was already guilty. They said they didn't raise me to be some kind of deadbeat, and they couldn't believe I would deny my own child. Here's where things get even crazier. I wasn't even in the same state when Jenny would have gotten pregnant. That's right, she was staying at a friend's place for an entire month when she supposedly conceived. I brought this up to my parents, and they just brushed it off. People make mistakes, they said. Yeah, well, this wasn't just a mistake. This was a full-blown accusation that could wreck my life. Fast forward to about 6 months into Jenny's pregnancy. By this point, the whole family has turned against me. Every family dinner, every phone call, every text, it's all about how I need to man up and take responsibility for this baby. I was losing my mind. It was like I was in some nightmare, and no matter what I said or did, nobody believed me. My friends were mostly on my side, thankfully, but even a couple of them started questioning things like, "Are you sure, man? Maybe you don't remember something." Finally, my parents dropped the ultimate bomb on me. If I don't step up and act like a father, they're cutting me out of their lives, disowning me, kicking me to the curb. At first, I thought they were bluffing, but nope, they were dead serious. They told me flat out that if I didn't go along with this, I was no longer welcome in the family. And sure enough, when I didn't cave, they disowned me. Let me tell you, that hurt. I was pissed off, confused, and just plain hurt. These were the people who raised me, who were supposed to have my back, and they chose to believe someone else over me. My own family threw me out like I didn't matter. It was brutal. Things got even weirder after the baby was born. My mom was there at the hospital, playing the role of proud grandma. I didn't even know until later. Jenny still wouldn't take the paternity test, so I had to go through some legal stuff to get it done. When the results came in, guess what? Not my kid. 0% chance I was the father, and as soon as I got that paper in my hand, I felt this wave of relief and anger all at once. I sent the results to my parents, thinking finally they'll see the truth, they'll realize they were wrong, and everything will go back to normal. Nope. Instead, they started blowing up my phone with apologies, offers of money, and begging me to forgive them. My dad even sent me a few $100 in the mail, like that was going to fix things. But here's the thing, I kept the money. Yeah, I took it. I felt like they owed me for all the crap they put me through. But forgive them? No way. I made it clear that if they were willing to disown me over something like this, I wasn't going to risk opening myself up to that kind of betrayal again. Most of my friends were on my side, but a few, along with my therapist, started saying things like, maybe you should give them another chance. They're your parents, after all. And I get it, I really do. But how do you just forgive someone who was ready to throw you away so easily? How do you trust someone who believed a lie over their own child? That's where I'm at now, stuck between knowing I did nothing wrong and wondering if I should even bother trying to fix things with my family. But every time I think about it, I remember how quickly they turned on me, and I can't shake the feeling that they failed me when I needed them the most. Update, I've been moving my things out of the house for 4 days, and no one noticed a thing. Neither she nor her mother. Even when I missed the wedding rehearsal, no one asked me. And now, only now, she comes to ask me, "Are you coming to my wedding, Dad?" No, I won't be there. You invited me to walk you down the aisle, but as soon as your biological father returned, I was completely forgotten. I'm not the father anymore. Part 2, why I thought her biological father was still a cheat with where her mother was. Without a doubt, Sandy knew. The execution was left whether we end our 20-year relationship in a pile of lies or preserve the memories of mutual respect we can still hold on to. I need to tell you something. This morning, I found protection in your mom's purse. What? Without a doubt, for tonight. I had a vasectomy before I met her, so they clearly weren't for me, and I know you take birth control pills, so they weren't for you. I'm glad to say the package was unopened, so she probably hasn't slept with him yet, but buying a whole pack 24 hours before his arrival indicates intent, doesn't it? I can see by your face that this news doesn't surprise you, so I can only conclude that you're implicit in your mother betraying me and our wedding vows by falling into bed with that slippery little bastard. Do you think it's romantic that, like in a fairy tale, your mom and dad are getting back together and you can play happy families, start married life with a Porsche in the driveway instead of the Nissan I bought you? Sandy opened her mouth to respond. I raised my hand to stop her. Don't bother. Forget it, I said. The answer doesn't matter. The fact that you knew, kept quiet, and did nothing to tell me ends our relationship right here and now. I stood up, walked over to her, lifted her to her feet, and hugged her, suppressing all the emotions I hadn't yet expressed that day. I loved you. With that, I left her life. Looking back from the door, I saw utter devastation on her beautiful face as she watched me leave. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Swallowing and gasping, she desperately tried to find her phone. I assumed this was in a desperate hope that her mother hadn't turned away from her, that her mom hadn't yet physically committed adultery, that her mother could use this as a reason to convince me to forgive her. Also, that Sandy wouldn't lose her other father, the dad who had been desperately crying out for the past month that his wife had stopped loving him and who had gone completely unnoticed. Meanwhile, she had fallen again for the smooth-talking king salesman with his sweet story. I shrugged. Whether my wife had physically crossed the line or not, the protection I stumbled upon that morning was enough for me. Initially, I had planned to move out temporarily to demonstrate the extent of my dissatisfaction with the events of the past month. The morning's discovery told me I had underestimated how bad things were and pushed me to agree, after several painful hours, that moving out was necessary. I checked my conscience, it agreed with me. I jumped in the car and drove away. Epilogue, some of what follows is fact, and some are rumors. The story would not be complete without both. On the day of the rehearsal, I spent some time trying to find out which motel the newly reappeared father was staying at. My motivation? I wanted to witness my wife's infidelity firsthand, to harden my heart for what needed to be done. My efforts were in vain. Instead, I chose Plan B. After leaving Sandy, I parked on the road near my house and turned off the lights. Sure enough, less than a minute later, my former daughter drove past in tears. A herd of elephants could have followed her unnoticed. She drove straight to a specific motel and rushed directly to a specific room. I followed her closely with my trusty old SLR camera and zoom lens. Due to Sandy's cries, her mother opened the door. I was mentally prepared, at least I thought I was, for the scene that greeted me. Strangely, what bothered me wasn't the sight of Laura hastily wrapped in a motel robe with tousled hair or her ex-husband standing behind her in boxers. No, what struck me was the look of panic on her face when Sandy spoke. I had protected her from such emotions for 20 years, it's a habit. I threw the camera onto the passenger seat, turned off my phone, and drove off into the night. After Sandy was led into the room and the door closed, my knowledge of the events that followed immediately after comes from various sources. The wedding did take place the next day, but at 6 p.m. instead of the scheduled 10 a.m. first, they had to find the bride's mother. She spent the night desperately searching for me and fell asleep exhausted. Then, precious time was spent looking for the bride's biological father, but he had disappeared. As I told Sandy, once he got what he wanted, he left. I really wondered about his motivation for all of this. My research showed that he and his second wife never had children. Perhaps he wanted to experience walking his child down the aisle. Some people just like to collect life experiences. I guess he saw that Laura was still an attractive woman and wanted her, or maybe it was just an egotistical trip. Being a self-centered person, he simply turned on the charm and pursued her until she gave in. Just as I warned her he would. When things got serious, he left. It might have been the most expensive sex of his life. Even before he could get back home, several photos were sent to his wife's mailbox. She left him using their prenuptial agreement. In the end, she continued to run her father's company without him. There were rumors that, a week or so later, he was found badly beaten in some alley. It was said that his father-in-law always took care of his only daughter and never liked scum. By the time the wedding party realized he was gone, the vicar had kindly rescheduled the ceremony to 6 p.m. I will never know at what point Laura discovered that all the seams on the dress she planned to wear to the event had been torn. It would have fallen apart in her hands, just like our marriage did because of her actions. I ignored all contact from Laura and Sandy. They flooded my voicemail with pleas to come back, but that bridge was truly burned. As expected, Laura left a long message saying she had just entered John's motel room after dropping him off, and all they did was talk. The protection in her purse was intended as a novelty at the front desk. 2 photos emailed to me clearly showed this was today. Her daughter asked me to walk her down the aisle. Even that didn't affect the silly grin that almost constantly makes my face ache. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next video of Reddit stories. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.